So we are in the book of Mark. We've been in the book of Mark for a while. And we were in chapter 2, then chapter 6, and chapter 4. It's okay. Are any of you even like, no, we've got no emails about that, so I'm not mad at anyone who's like, hey, stay on track. But anyways, today we're in chapter 8. So we're in chapter 8, starting in verse 14. And the story goes like this. The disciples had forgotten to bring bread except for one loaf they had with them in the boat. Be careful, Jesus warned them. Someone say, oh, that's crazy. That's not even the craziest part of the story. So that's wow, that's really going to blow your mind here. Be careful, Jesus warned them. Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. That's right. They discussed this with one another and said, it's because we have no bread. I don't know, I put a question mark, but. Aware of their discussion, Jesus asked them, why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see and ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000? That's crazy. How many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? 12, they replied. And when I broke the 7 loaves for the 4,000, that's crazy. How many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? They answered 7. He said to them, do you still not understand? Right? Apparently not. Because it's chapter 8 and there's more chapters. Can we get the lights up a little? It's like super dark. I can't see it. Can anyone? I guess you can see me, but oh yeah, is that okay? Okay, yeah, okay. I was like, this could be anyone. Anyone could have just got up and left. I'm like, and another thing. So I feel like what's important as we talk about this story, what's important to talk about is just storytelling. To understand this story, we need to understand the importance of storytelling. Most of us know that as human beings, this is like the number one way we process information. They did a study at the University of Ohio, I think, or Iowa, which in my mind. So they took 200 students, they put 100 in one classroom and 100 in another. These are college age students. And in one room they presented just a set of facts. In another room they presented the same set of facts, but they told them in a story. And there was like an 80% higher retention rate for the folks who were told the story. Because that's the way we understand the world, right? Is storytelling. And so one of the most important aspects of storytelling, both when we're telling stories and we're understanding stories that shape our life, is our ability to move from moments to meaning, right? From moments to meaning. So, for example, if I was to tell you my story, I'm like, oh yeah, and then I came out and now I have a wife and we live my life. But the meaning behind that is that I was so afraid to disappoint people who had a different expectation from me in my life, and then I realized that disappointing people and not meeting people's expectations when it comes to being true to who you are is wildly important, and it's always worth it, right? And the meaning that I took from that moment in my life has actually translated and become more meaning in more moments of life. So all of our lives, we are not just a collection of facts. I remember when my wife and I were in premarital, before we got married, and the counselor was telling us, like, money's a big issue, like in marriages, you know? And in my mind, I'm like, is it because money's just, at the end of the day, it's numbers on a screen. Until you're crying. And I think about that all the time, because I'm like, it's just numbers on a screen, but it's not. I have so many feelings, big feelings about the facts of those numbers on the screen. I have associated a lot of meaning to the moments that I have experienced in relation to those numbers on the screen. So if anyone has ever cried looking at numbers on a screen, then you understand that we are not just a collection of facts and moments. We are all about the feelings and the meanings that we associate to those. So all through our lives, we have had these moments, and we have assigned meaning to all of them, right? They're not always positive. Maybe you were bullied, maybe a partner cheated on you, your parents got divorced. You have these other things where you created different kind of meanings that assign value to you and the way you work, and our whole life is making meaning out of the moments that we experience, is assigning facts to the feelings. If not, then We could all just look at numbers on a screen objectively. -2? No problem. That's my trauma. But, so we have to understand this. And the reason that this is so important is because right now, and always throughout time, but right now specifically, we live in a world where we have lots of very, very loud voices telling us what meaning to make out of the moment that we are in. Probably the most valuable commodity in the world, every powerful person in the world is vying for one thing, and that is you to adopt their meaning of the way that the world works. This is not unlike this time. Everyone from Herod and the Pharisees and the religious leaders and the empires of the time to the empires and the powerful and the people of this time want you to adopt their meaning of the way that the world works. And so that's why this is incredibly important to Jesus, because Jesus' entire thing is like, we need to look at the thing behind the thing. We need to look not only at the moments, we need to look at the meaning behind the moments. And Jesus is saying, okay, you have this bread, but what makes the bread rise? What are you consuming? What meaning, what narratives are you understanding as you consume the bread of the empire? And then Jesus starts to get a little frustrated. And he's like, literally, how many miracles do you have to watch before you realize it's not about the miracle, it's about the meaning behind the miracle? The entire book of Mark is trying to push us to get beyond the moment into the meaning. Okay, yes, I healed this person. It's not just about healing this person. It's about the fact that I did it on the Sabbath because you are not made for the Sabbath is made for you. Okay, yes, I ate with this person because it's not about the rules of the Pharisees. It's about the way you engage and make people feel whole and loved, and everyone's included in this kingdom, and on and on and on and on and on. And so he's like mad at this point. He's in chapter 8. And he's like, so your ears are broken, your eyes are broken? What? Y'all don't see what I'm trying to do? And the entire ministry of Jesus is reminding us that we have an opportunity to witness moments and experience them and make a meaning out of them that is revolutionary. That is deeper than what the empires of the day hand us. That is different than what the Pharisees are telling us. That it is our own that we get to experience through witnessing the miracles in the life of Jesus. It's like, have you ever looked back at a time and you're like, I was just thinking so small. Like we look back at a time and we realize the meaning that we were making, and then we have expanded that meaning. There was a time, I'm going to tell you the story. It's embarrassing. But when I used to be straight, or I thought I was. I don't know. I'll take that with therapy, but a time in my life where I was dating boys, it is crazy. That's crazy. You thought the scripture was crazy. But I met this boy in high school, and he was nice, and we were friends, which is what I think I was with all my boyfriends. But and we ended up dating, and he was a year older than me, so he went off to college before me, and he played football, and everyone said he was really good. I don't know, because I never went to the games and that kind of thing. But it turns out he was really good. He was like really, really good. And so he went to college to play football, and then after his second year, he got drafted by the NFL. And in a big way, got like $10 million, like straight up. And that's crazy. So he's playing at USC, and I'm at APU, okay? So if you guys don't know, there's a big difference. And huge difference. And so he calls me, he's like, listen, I just got dropped out of I just got $10 million. I'm gonna come to APU, I'm gonna pick you up, I'm gonna take you anywhere you wanna go. And I was like, what? So he pulls up to APU, okay, in like a car with the rims are still going. This is like 2005, okay? This is very cool at the time, you know. He decides that like a small dinner plate worth of diamonds. And he's like, where do you want to go? And the craziest thing I think of, I was like, California Pizza Kitchen. California Pizza Kitchen! And he took me to California Pizza Kitchen. And I was like, this is incredible. Okay, like this is it. We had to drive to the Brit Mall. That was like the nearest California Pizza Kitchen. I got a drink, not alcoholic, like a soda. I got a salad, I got an appetizer, and I got 2 pizzas because I brought it back to the girls in my dorm. Okay? And at the time, I was like, this is as good as it gets. If someone came up to me now and they said, hey, I just got $10 million to take you anywhere you want to go, we're going to www.zillow.com. And that is the dream that we're taking. You're going to the bank, okay? And then I'm going home. our meaning of what we think is possible. And the way we do that is by experiencing these times where we jump in the reality of what we think is possible. We experience these miracles. And what Jesus is saying is, you saw the 5 loaves, then you saw the 7 loaves, and you've seen me heal the sick, you need all these things, and you still don't understand. And the reality is, I think that a lot of us are in the same boat. Because at the end of the day, we all have these experiences in our lives that are similar to the 5 loaves. We all have days we didn't think we'd make it. We have a situation that we never thought would work out. We've experienced healing emotionally, physically. We've seen our family be transformed. We've seen all of these things. And our role and our job is to continually push what we think is possible and allow the meaning from those to be made to be more radically inclusive, like the ministry of Jesus. Something that we say every week when we do this unity prayer, we say at the end, like, this is incredibly easy to say, or this is incredibly hard to do. That's because the message of Jesus is continually pushing us past all of the meaning that the empire will ever give us. All of the meaning that we will naturally go to. All of the meaning that we want to make, that we want to exclude some people and include some people, that we want to see this person as just bad, that we want to allow ourselves to be in competition with people, that we want to feel better about ourselves by measuring against other people. All of those things he is pushing against and saying, all of these miracles, these moments that you experience, they need to move to a bigger meaning, and that meaning is where everyone belongs. And that's wild. But we have to be in the business of reimagining that. I'm reminded often of the words of Octavia Butler when she tells us that all justice work is fiction writing. So she said that all justice work is fiction writing. Meaning if you see a world that doesn't yet exist, you're writing fiction. When we have leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and he says, I have a vision, and little black girls and little white girls are playing on the playground together, that wasn't like something he saw. He's writing fiction. When we say, I imagine a United States where kids go to school and it's safe, like that's a fictional narrative I'm just making up. When we say, I see this vision for my family and the way we can interact on Thanksgiving, it's probably fiction. I can't be certain about your family, but probably fiction. And that is one of the most important tools that we have. This entire book and Jesus' ministry is constantly pushing towards a reimagine. We live in one of the noisiest times that's ever existed, and so much of that noise isn't just noise. It's actually a cheap offering for us to just adopt someone else's meaning instead of doing the work of reimagining what could happen and how we could become more like the ministry of Jesus. Instead of sitting and saying, I had this meeting, this moment, and what is the meaning that I assigned to it, and how does that shape my life? And this thing happened to me, but what can I do? And what does it look like in ministry? All these things, but instead we're offered so quickly a cheap alternative to making meaning that someone else wants us to have. If you literally open Instagram, like right now, it'll be like, did X happen to you? Then why? And you're like, next. Right? You should think this thing. Do you want to know why the world looks like this? It's because of this people. Do you want to know why these churches look like this? It's because of these bad people. Do you want to know why you're better than this person? It's because of this, right? And I don't even know what political ideology or social justice thing or whatever you had in your mind, but a lot of people sound like that. And Jesus is constantly pushing us against that to say, what if we weren't in competition? What if this person caught in adultery? What if it was like a revolutionary way of encountering her? Where we all said, what if we've all made mistakes? This is wild meaning to make out of these moments. I healed this person on the Sabbath. Well, what if it isn't about adhering to rules? What if it's about finding rest for yourself? This is revolutionary. I split all these breads. What if it's not about the bread? What if the bread will always come? What if it's about what makes the bread rise? What if it's the thing behind the thing? What if it's the meaning you make out of this thing? Again and again and again, Jesus is pushing us to this reality that is countercultural and revolutionary. And my fear sometimes in this current cultural moment is that we are offered so many ways to make meaning of our time here that maybe make us feel good or feel validated, and they're not all bad. But if it's not our own work of reimagining, then we don't have eyes to see and ears to hear. Then we're not looking at the thing behind the thing. Then we're not paying attention to the yeast that makes our bread rise. Then we're not paying attention to what is actually driving us. And we're not going to get any closer to the really, really, really radical words that we say at the beginning of every service. We're never going to be able to look at our neighbor And we're never going to be able to look at our enemy in the way that Jesus would, and that is absolutely what we need more of in the world. We need to be about the business of expanding our imagination to be so wildly inclusive. And to do that, we have to confront some of the meaning that we have made in our moments, from our moments here on earth. We have to get really, really, really curious about all the times that we have experienced what is emphatically a miracle. Anything you thought you couldn't get behind and you did, miracle. What meaning do we associate? It's not just about the moment. It's like, oh, I didn't think I was going to make it, and then I did. Okay, well, what does that mean about making it? And what does that mean about other people who aren't making it? What does that mean about people who have made it? Oh, wow, I didn't think my family could ever look like this. I didn't think my relationship could ever look like this. I didn't think I'd ever find love, and then you did. Okay, great. But now you need to go and you need to reassign meaning to that. You need to get really curious about what that means for other people in the world. We are not just a collection of moments to experience for ourselves. If we really want to be about the work of Jesus, then everything that we experience, every moment, every fact, every experience, we have to redefine and reimagine the meaning that we assign to that for the liberation of all people. That is the work of Jesus. We don't just get to sit here and be like, man, I didn't think I was going to make it, and I did. Right? What does that mean for everyone else who doesn't make it? What does that mean for how I feel if I'm in competition? What does that mean about my scarcity? Something I think about all the time is in this passage when these people are clinging to this one loaf of bread. Jesus is like, there's not good yeast in there. There's not good yeast in that bread. And they're like, I know, but we only have one loaf of bread, right? This is the one thing. And he said, how many times do I need to remind you there's more bread? Bread is super easy to make. And it reminds me of how I feel about people in other churches that I like to talk shit about sometimes. But when I try to make meaning of the life of Jesus, I have empathy for, and that's a real flip-flop that I do often. But when I think about the scarcity that can happen when you have so attached yourself to one meaning of the world, and you have aligned yourself with one voice and one empire and those things, and you feel like you're on your last of it, and the way you understand the world is so tied to just this one thing, I know how scary that is. Because I've been that person in the boat clinging to one bread, even though it wasn't even good for me. I was like, but this is the only bread I have. And so as I've made meaning around my own evolution, I can look back with so much empathy to say, I don't think it's good for you. I don't think that's where we need to be to get to freedom. I don't know that that's going to lead us to good places, but boy, do I know what that feels like. And man, do I have empathy for that. And man, do I remember also how good it felt. I say this all the time, I'm like, you know how good it feels to just align yourself with an empire or a leader and then they just tell you what to do and you're like, oh, sick. It's a lot harder to do what I'm saying. Every day I'm like, oh, I need to get closer to this. Oh, I need to reimagine this. Oh, God, I need to make meaning out of this. I'm tired. I'm paying salaries to therapists. But ultimately, this is the work. It's not comfortable. And we don't just get handed down an ideology by a pastor or a priest or a political leader or an influencer or a podcast host. And we don't get to take the short way out and just say oh, thank you, just give me that quick rising yeast and let it do its thing. And we don't just get to move and experience these moments and say, wow, that was a nice moment. Everything we do is towards the redemptive work that Jesus was involved in, and that requires constant reevaluating of the meaning that we make in our life. The stories that we tell. The stories we believe about ourselves. If it can't be true about you, then it can't be true about your neighbor. If it can't be true about your neighbor, it will never be true about your enemy. And so how are you involved in reimagining the story you tell about yourself? And the work doesn't stop there. Once you do that, then you need to reimagine the stories you tell and believe around your neighbor. And once you do that, the work doesn't stop. You need to reimagine and retell and re-understand the stories you tell about your enemy. And all of that starts with remembering the fact that you have experienced miracles and moments, and what is the meaning behind them. I love this. Jesus just keeps hammering down. This wasn't about the miracles, but the meaning. So that means our lives haven't been about the moments and the miracles, they're also about the meaning. And this is a beautiful time in history, in our society, in our social landscape, in an election year. You see that? To remind ourselves that we are not at the whim of just taking someone else's meaning for the world. Yes, be active, be politically active, be socially active, but along the while remember that you are trying to find a meaning that is radical and countercultural and even bigger than any political party, than any president, than any social media influencer, than any podcast, than any empire, than any Pharisee, than Herod. That you are after something deeper, bigger, more meaningful, more radical. And you have to constantly keep pushing yourself to that and making meaning. Keep expanding these ideas. That keep fighting. Everyone is going to try to hand you a piece of bread and say, you're good, don't worry about it, you're set. You don't know where that bread came from. You can't eat it at everyone's house. Okay? You're good. If you know, you know. But that was like pretty much what I was saying. So, no, here's an ending. No, but like, okay, how about this? Yeah, you got it. But seriously, I think as I was thinking about this morning, and I wrote and rewrote this sermon like 4 times, because I just kept thinking about how loud everything is. And then I just kept thinking about all the ways where it's so easy for me to just like adopt someone else's meaning for the world. And every time I've done that, I've looked around and it doesn't create in me the kind of fruit that I think would come from following the way of Jesus. Like sometimes I just like hear these people and they're like, and these people are the problem, and it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and I'm like, I'm with you. Yeah, F those people, you know? And then I'm like, wait, shoot, you know? Is that what I want to do? What's the deeper meaning? Can I be a person who wants liberation for all people? Maybe that includes them too. Is that something that Jesus was talking about? Well, then I need to redefine how I make meaning of the problems I'm experiencing. Well, I need to redefine how I make meaning about the issues that cause me harm. Well, I need to redefine my meaning around those people who sit in those chairs and who say those things. And this is not like a message. It's like, don't be involved in anything going on in our society. Yeah, we gotta push the needle forward. But I think while we do, we have to realize that that's not the goal. The goal is constant reimagination and reevaluation of the meaning that we experience. The goal is loving our enemies, and that's crazy. That's crazy. But that's what we're going for. And that's gonna take a lot more intentionality for moving our own moments into a different kind of meaning. And that's the end. So you're going to grab the same 3 or 4 people around you, and you're going to answer this question: what story do you need to reimagine? You know?